A farm full of sadness. Barnaby Buttercup surveyed the yard, a sigh escaping his lips like air from a punctured bellows. Weeds choked the vegetable patch, the fence sagged drunkenly, and the chicken coop resembled a small-scale hurricane zone. Even the usually cheerful sunflowers drooped, mirroring his own melancholy. He kicked at a loose stone, sending it skittering across the overgrown path. It was all too much. Too much work, too much silence, too much sadness. He remembered Beatrice, her laughter echoing in his mind like the distant peal of church bells. She had possessed a magic touch, coaxing life from the very soil. Together, they'd planted those sunflowers, their hands brushing as they patted down the earth. He could almost smell her lavender perfume mingled with the sweet scent of ripe tomatoes. Now, the aroma was just dust and decay. He leaned heavily on his spade, the worn wood familiar beneath his calloused hands. The sun beat down, heavy and relentless, amplifying his weariness. He longed for a cool glass of lemonade, the kind Beatrice used to make, tart and refreshing. More than that, he longed for someone to share it with. Someone to help him mend the fence, weed the garden, and chase away the encroaching loneliness that threatened to swallow him whole. Someone, anyone. He pictured himself, years from now, still alone, still struggling, the farm a monument to a love lost and a life unfulfilled. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, colder than any winter wind. Cruella's cruel plan. Those girls. Honestly, they eat like horses and contribute less than stable sweepings. Cruella slammed her empty teacup onto the mahogany table, the fine china rattling in protest. Lily, Daisy, burdens, the pair of them. She dabbed at her lips with a lace handkerchief, her eyes, sharp and glinting, scanned the cluttered drawing room. Sunlight caught the dust motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny, irritating reminder of her own dwindling fortune. A slow, calculating smile spread across Cruella's face. Unless, she murmured, tapping a crimson-lacquered nail against her teeth. Unless those burdens could be converted. The idea, once formed, blossomed with wicked speed. Marriage. Yes. A swift, profitable transaction. She could paint them as paragons of virtue, hard-working and docile. Someone somewhere would bite. She snatched a sheet of parchment and a quill, the nib scratching furiously as she composed the advertisement. Seeking hard-working wives, excellent cooks, skilled seamstresses, and of amiable disposition. Cruella paused, adding with a flourish, modest dowry considered. A snort escaped her. Modest indeed. The only dowry would be their absence. She folded the parchment, a predatory gleam in her eye. Time to reel in a prize, she whispered, rising to deliver the advertisement to the village newspaper. The scent of jasmine and deceit lingered in the air after she swept from the room. Answering the advertisement, Barnaby squinted at the advertisement plastered to the general store window. Tired of endless chores? Need a helping hand? Hardworking wives available. Apply within Crimp Cottage. The ink had run in the recent rain, making Crimp Cottage look more like Crumpet Cottage, a tempting image of tea and toasted bread that only deepened Barnaby's melancholy. He sighed, tracing the smudged words with a calloused finger. Hardworking wives. The very notion felt absurd. Since Martha passed, the farm had become a relentless, unwinnable battle. The weeds laughed at his feeble attempts to pull them, the fences sagged like his own shoulders, and the cows seemed to conspire to escape at every opportunity. Days turned into a monotonous cycle of exhaustion and loneliness. He missed Martha's laughter, her strong hands in the garden, even her nagging about the state of his overalls. Could this be a solution? He hesitated. The idea of wives felt almost disrespectful to Martha's memory. But the alternative was watching Buttercup Farm crumble around him. He glanced back at the advertisement, then at his reflection in the dusty glass. A gaunt, hollow-eyed stranger stared back. Barnaby straightened his back, a flicker of determination igniting in his weary eyes. He'd just go and see. No harm in that. See these hard-working wives and, if the Almighty was smiling, maybe, just maybe, find a little help to keep Martha's legacy alive. He turned toward the lane that led out of town, the name Crimp Cottage buzzing in his mind with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Deceived by sweetness. Barnaby, his boots caked in mud, hesitated at the threshold. Mrs. Crimp, he mumbled, tugging his forelock. Thank you for seeing me. Cruella's smile could melt butter, though Barnaby didn't notice the glint of steel behind it. Barnaby, dear. Come in, come in. No need for formality. We're practically family now, aren't we? She ushered him into a parlor smelling of lavender and something faintly metallic. The girls, he began, fiddling with the brim of his hat, are they, well? Well? They're radiant. Positively blooming. Just wilting away for a man like you, Barnaby. A strong, dependable farmer. Cruella's voice dripped with honey. They yearn for the quiet life, away from the city's hustle and bustle. Lily adores baking. Daisy is a dab hand with needle and thread. Perfect wives, truly. From the corner, Lily and Daisy stared, their faces pale, their eyes wide and glistening like trapped moths. Daisy clutched a worn doll, its painted smile a cruel mockery. Lily's fingers twisted in the fabric of her drab, gray dress. Cruella swept a hand dismissively. A little shy, that's all. They've been through so much, poor dears. But a kind heart like yours, Barnaby, will coax them out of their shells in no time. They just need a fresh start, a loving home, and a man to provide for them. Cruella leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Think of it, Barnaby. 2 for the price of, well, let's just say, a very reasonable sum. Consider it a blessing. Barnaby swallowed hard, his gaze darting between the twins and Cruella's unwavering stare. The lavender smell seemed to thicken, choking him. He thought of a contract of misunderstanding. Barnaby shuffled his boots, kicking up dust devils in the yard as Lily and Daisy weeded the neglected rose bushes. Their nimble fingers danced among the thorns, their faces tilted towards the weak autumn sun. He watched them, a pang of something he hadn't felt in years squeezing his chest. Loneliness, he supposed, came in many flavors, and this one tasted like quiet desperation. The roses are looking happier, he mumbled, approaching them. Daisy smiled, a fleeting, shy thing. They were thirsty, sir. Barnaby, please, he corrected, then coughed, embarrassed by his forwardness. Are you both happy here? Lily's brow furrowed. We do what we must. That was it. The quiet resignation in her voice settled it. He couldn't stand to see such gentle souls trapped in this hardscrabble life. He would buy their contracts. It was the least he could do. He found Cruella Crimp inside, perched on a stool, filing her nails. I'll take them, he announced, his voice surprisingly firm. Cruella's painted lips stretched into a predatory smile. Well now, Barnaby, I always knew you had a good heart. She named a price, a sum that made Barnaby's stomach clench, but he nodded. He'd sell some of the back acreage. He'd manage. As Barnaby counted out the coins, the weight of each one heavy in his palm, Cruella snatched the pile. She watched him leave, her eyes gleaming with avarice. Suckers, she hissed, tossing the money into a worn leather bag. Every last one of them. The coins clinked, a celebratory chime in the otherwise silent, decaying house. She smoothed the front of her dress, the red a stark contrast to the peeling wallpaper, and hummed a jaunty tune. Her trap had been set, and the life on the farm. The relentless sun beat down on Lily's back as she hoed weeds in the never-ending vegetable garden. Each swing of the tool sent jolts of pain through her unaccustomed muscles. Beside her, Daisy's face was set in a grim mask as she attacked a particularly stubborn patch of bindweed. The air hung thick and heavy with the scent of manure and damp earth, a far cry from the perfume shops they used to frequent. Later, slumped on the rickety porch swing, Lily sighed. Remember Madame Evangeline's? She murmured, picturing the shimmering silks and the intoxicating aromas of imported spices. Daisy nodded, a wistful look in her eyes. And the balls, the music, the dancing. Barnaby Buttercup shuffled past, his shoulders slumped even further than usual. He carried a bucket of slop for the pigs, his gaze fixed on the muddy ground. They watched him go, a shared thought passing between them. That night, huddled in their shared attic room, Daisy whispered, "We can't stay here, Lily. We just can't." Lily traced patterns on the dusty floorboards. "I know. But how do we leave? He watches us like a hawk." "We'll have to be clever," Daisy said, her voice hardening. "We'll save our meager earnings, bit by bit. And we'll need a plan. A good one." The flickering candlelight cast long, dancing shadows on the walls, mirroring the flickering hope in their hearts. They were trapped, but not broken. Not yet. The truth revealed. The slop bucket felt heavier than usual. Barnaby's shoulders ached, not just from the work, but from a deep, gnawing unease. He glanced at Lily and Daisy, their faces like wilted flowers as they weeded the vegetable patch. They hadn't sung since the wedding. Their laughter, once a bright melody in the farmhouse, was now a distant memory. He paused by the pigpen, the grunting snorts somehow mocking his own miserable mood. As he poured the slop, he overheard the twins, their voices hushed. "She made me polish her boots until my fingers bled," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. And she said if I didn't finish mending her shawl by nightfall, she'd lock me in the cellar, Daisy replied, tears clinging to her lashes. Barnaby's breath hitched. Cellar? Bleeding fingers? This wasn't the picture Cruella had painted. He remembered her sweet words, her concern for their future, her insistence that they needed a strong husband to provide for them. The memory tasted like ash in his mouth. He straightened, the bucket clattering against the fence. Had he been a fool? A blind, gullible fool? The girls flinched, their eyes wide with alarm. Barnaby saw their fear not of him but of something else, something he was suddenly desperate to understand. The truth, sharp and ugly, began to dawn. Stormy rescue. Barnaby slopped the pig feed, the stench doing little to lift his spirits. Every chore felt heavier than the last, each sunrise a fresh reminder of his failures. A distant rumble echoed, barely audible over the snorting pigs. He glanced at the horizon. Ominous clouds, bruised purple and black, were gathering fast. Barnaby. Lily's voice cut through the air, sharp with urgency. She sprinted towards him, Daisy close behind, her face pale. A storm's coming. A bad one. Before he could reply, the first fat raindrop splattered against the barn roof. Within moments, the wind howled, tearing at the trees. The pigs squealed, panicking. The chickens? Daisy cried, pointing towards the coop, its door flapping wildly. Barnaby, snapping out of his despair, barked orders. Lily, secure the barn. Daisy, help me with the chickens. He ran towards the coop, the wind whipping his hair across his face. He struggled to close the door, the chickens scattering in a frenzy. Daisy, small but determined, helped herd them back inside. Lightning flashed, illuminating the farm in a stark, ghostly light. A tree branch cracked and fell nearby. They worked quickly, driven by a shared sense of purpose. Lily fought against the wind to latch the barn doors, her small frame straining against the force. Rain lashed down, turning the farmyard into a muddy swamp. Finally, soaked to the bone and breathless, they huddled together in the relative shelter of the barn, the terrified sounds of the animals filling the air. A new family. Barnaby slopped the trough, the grunts of the pigs a dull counterpoint to the ache in his heart. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world scrubbed clean and a debt he couldn't fathom. Then Cruella arrived, her smile as sharp as broken glass. Well, Barnaby, she drawled, smoothing the silk of her emerald dress. Pleasure doing business. But there are adjustments. She tapped a lacquered nail on her ledger. Unforeseen expenses. Let's just say the price of procuring those lovely girls has increased. Barnaby straightened, the slop bucket clanging against the fence. I gave you everything I had. Everything you had? Cruella's laughter was a dry rasp. Oh, darling, you have so much more to give. She gestured to the farm, the pigs, the very land beneath their feet. Something snapped. Not a clean break, but a splintering, a defiance born of desperation. Get off my land, Cruella. His voice, thick with grief and a newfound resolve, surprised even him. Her face hardened. You dare speak to me like that? I own those girls, body and soul? No, a voice declared. Sheriff Brody stepped from behind the barn, his face grim. Cruella Crimp, you're under arrest for fraud and coercion. Seems you forgot to pay your associates. And those contracts? Invalid. The girls are free. Cruella shrieked, but Brody silenced her with a cuff. As they dragged her away, Barnaby turned to the house. Lily and Daisy stood on the porch, watching. He walked towards them, each step heavy with regret. I'm so sorry, he choked out. I didn't know. I won't fail you again. If you'll have me, I'll be the father you deserve. Lily ran to him, Daisy close behind. 3 broken souls, finding solace in the wreckage. A new family forged in the fires of betrayal and bound by a promise of love.